Okay, I'm going to make a video on how to calculate dependency numbers. And so to do so, I'm going to start off with a proof that's already done, but the dependency numbers are missing. So here we have it, and I was also thinking about making it more exciting by playing some Karamina Burana in the background. Hopefully that will lighten things up a bit. Alright, so let's start. So we know that 1 is a premise. As you can see here, all premises and assumptions must have dependency numbers that match its line number. And so here the line number is 1, and so the dependency number must be 1. So on the second line, the formula A is derived from line 1 by the application of conjunction elimination. So since line 2 comes from line 1, and we ask what does the truth of line 2 depend on, we answer that by looking at what 1 depends on. And so 1 depends on 1, so that makes 2 also depend on 1. Okay, so line 3 comes from line 1 just in the same way as line 2 does, and so line 3 will also depend on 1, since it's gotten from 1, and 1 depends on 1. Here, B is an assumption, so B has to have its dependency number match its line number. So on line 5, we see A is the left-hand conjunct of the conjunction A and B, which comes from 2, and then B is the right-hand conjunct of the conjunction that comes from 4, right? And so A and B comes from 2 and 4 with an introduction. So to calculate the dependency number from line 5, what we have is we have to look at what 2 and 4 depends on. It's not from line 2 and 4, rather it's what actually 2 and 4 will depend on. So since 2 depends on 1 and 4 depends on 4, this becomes 1 and 4. So here on line 6, it's the same sort of process. To calculate what the truth of 6 depends on, right, we have to look at where it comes from. So it comes from 5, and so the dependency numbers will be from 1 and 4. It should not be number 5. You'll notice that all of the dependency numbers will either have an assumption or a premise. So all of these numbers, you'll never actually see anything else referred to except for premises and assumptions. Okay, so on line 7, we have another assumption, so that has to match its dependency numbers. On line 8, it's from 2 and 7, so it's 2 and 7, which is 2 and 7. On 9, it's 8, so that makes this not 8, but 2 and 7. Okay, lastly, the last formula comes from lines 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. So normally, like what we were doing before, we would calculate the dependency of this formula by looking at the lines with which it came from. So this comes from 3, 4, 6, and 9. So on line 3, right, that depended on 1. On line 4, right, that depended on 4. On 6, it depended on 1 and 4, which we include and we don't repeat, so that's the same, right? And then on line 7, it comes from 7. And line 9, it's from 2 and 7, right? So it should be 1, 4, 7, and 2. However, if you look at these assumptions, you notice that we've made a note. And the note helps us in several ways. The note will help us understand why we assume this. We assume this because we're going to use OR elimination to discharge it. And also it tells us when we should discharge it. And so here we're going to discharge these assumptions when we apply the rule of OR elimination, that we use this line when we use OR elimination. So that means we discharge or leave out of the dependency numbers lines 4 and line 7. So for 10, the dependency numbers should just be 1 and 2. Okay. And hopefully that helps you a little bit more in how to calculate dependency numbers.